Welcome to MHS Patriot News, brought to you by me, Kirill Maria Hajipekov, and
Annika Marguerite Lambert. This year, the Mendham Players Drama Club is performing Rent for the spring musical. Rent is set in the early 1990s in New York City. It follows a group of New Yorkers as they struggle with their careers, love lives, and the HIV/AIDS epidemic.
we spoke to the director, Mr. Barthel, about why he chose Rent for this year's production. So, why did you choose Rent?
So when we pick a show, we all kind of get together and go, all right, where's the program at right now, and how do we want to grow it? How do we want to grow our students, right? And we look at the strengths of the students involved in the program. We're looking to like what we hope to add to the program, what we think might add to the program, and we go, all right, so where we're at now, what's the show that's going to work best? How can we, achieve our goals for moving the program forward? And then we think about, all right, what kind of story do we want to tell from that, right? So what story interests us that meets these goals?
Right.
And Rent was always one that I wasn't really interested in at first. It wasn't until we were studying History of the American Musical as a unit in my theater class, and I showed clips of it to my students to get them to understand, because Rent was a very important musical in our history. And they were so moved by it, and it made me see it again through their eyes. And I felt that, this could be something we could do. And I think it's a very important story because Jonathan Larson, who was the composer of it, actually died opening night of its off-Broadway run of Marfan syndrome. And the beautiful story about it is that, the cast was just going to sing it as a concert, but the story is so moving that they couldn't help but get up and perform it.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, they said, thank you, Jonathan Larson. It was kind of streamlined into a Broadway run. So it was, in many ways, it was its pure artistic intent, but in a lot of ways, I think it didn't get to go through the same workshop process that a lot of Broadway shows do. So it offers a lot for every program and director and version to build on and add to Jonathan Larson's legacy, and we hope to have done that with our production.
There's a lot of hard work that goes into every Mendham Players production. We asked Mr. Barthel about his responsibilities as a director and what it takes to put on a complex show like Rent. Here's his 2 cents on the issue.
I'm the lobbying production, but I'm the one that coordinates and manages it all. I pick the shows with consultation with the music director and all the other assistant directors. I cast the show. I'm kind of like it's like if this was like Restaurant Impossible, I'm like the Robert Irvine.
Right. Yeah.
And we have all our different delegates down.
Mr. Barthel is assisted by Mrs. Borkowski, the assistant director. Though it's her first year as a part of the Mendham Players, she has taken on a huge part of the production process. Here's what she told us.
How to summarize this. So basically, I'm the assistant director, so I've been doing the costumes and helping make some of the set design decisions and anything that they need me to do to make the show successful.
Ms. Borkowski also talked to us about the psychological and emotional components of producing musicals, Rent in particular.
It's coming up with what you think the characters, who they are as people, and then imagining what they would look like on the street. Like if you saw a Maureen or a Roger, what would that look like? What would they wear? How would they act? What props then do you need? So it becomes, what costumes are they going to wear? Then what do we have to order for them to be able to wear that costume? And then what props are they going to need to carry to portray a story? And it's all really just, I guess it all comes down to telling a story and how you can best do that to an audience that might not know who these characters are, because working with the play every day, I feel like I know them in and out, but somebody needs to know them in and out in 2 hours. And how do you get them there?
Luckily, Mr. Barthel and Mrs. Borkowski have a team of students he can rely on for help. Senior Olive D'Agostino is one of the Players' student directors. We asked Olive about her job on set.
We really do a lot of helping out Mr. Barthel, who's the main director, and Mrs. Borkowski. We help in the beginning. We start to plan out who's going to be doing what at certain times and during certain acts, and how it's all going to pan together, and how the staging and the lights will all bring it together. And just
While Mr. Barthel, Miss Borkowski, and Olive handle the acting and musical aspects of the show, the main focus of the musical are the actors. This year, junior Lucas Falick stars as Mark. Here's what he had to say about his experience as an actor and what Rent means to him and the rest of the cast.
Mark is kind of a special role for me, I think, because it's so far removed from anything that I've done before. What I've been telling people is that it's boiling it down. I've essentially had to learn to sing in about 3 months. So I'm obviously not nearly as talented as other singers who've been doing this for years, but I enjoy it a lot because it's a big change of pace for me, because I'm very much used to the singing aspects of the program, like the plays usually, and moving into the musical like this is a big challenge because I'm just learning to act in a different way. Mark Cohen sees himself very much as a witness. He sees himself as like someone who's there, who is on this earth to document the experiences of others. And while he sees that as noble, and I think that's a little bit noble myself, he also uses it as a way to detach a little bit, because he kind of sees himself less and less as a part of his own group and more as this kind of documentary person, this filmographer that isn't really part of their lives anymore, and that allows him to detach. And I think that's one of my biggest flaws in life, my kind of tendency to detach, and I think playing Mark has taught me a lot about not keeping that tendency in my own life. Rent is at least 2 decades old. Let's go with that. And the thing is that while the subject matter of Rent, the AIDS epidemic, the physical objects and the actual, like the nouns, the subject matter, that gets more and more dated as the years goes on, but the message is timeless, because the message is about accepting others, and the message is about overcoming in the face of difficult circumstances, when it feels like all is lost, when it feels like the whole world is turning against you and your way of life. And I think that can maybe even be more prevalent now than it was when Rent was written. I think that Rent its primary goal is to help others, is to teach a lesson about empathy, and to teach a lesson about understanding and accepting others. And I think that if there was one thing that I wanted the audience to take away from Rent, our production at least specifically, is the idea of accepting other people.
I think it's really important to recognize Mendham players for all the time and hard work that they put into the spring musical.
This year's Mendham Players production Rent brought awareness to the LGBTQIA+ community and the HIV/AIDS crisis to Mendham by telling honest stories about the unfair treatment of these groups in the 1980s and 90s.
Thank you to the cast and crew for their efforts, and the Mendham High School community for supporting the production. Follow @Mendham Players on Instagram to stay in the loop about next year's fall drama.